Thank you. Okay. Well, we are back in Israel, and some of this, I'm assuming, Ray, you may get tired of me always saying stuff to you about it because you've been there and you'll remember some stuff that I won't. So get ready to be called on again. I took some of these out of order. I will say, just disclosure time. Yeah, great. Thank you. Disclosure time. This week was like an extreme time pressure week, and so I did not put as much as I wanted to as far as the order of everything. So I trust it'll make sense and that it will be profitable for us. So these are just some of the fun pictures again. The meals that I don't know how they did all this, but everything looked fancy. Everything it didn't always taste as good as it looked, but it was good. And these things, there we go. These things here, they were all kind of, they were almost like, they had sugar stuff on them, and there was something about this long, so you felt kind of stupid walking with it back to your table. But they were fun, and they had all kind of chocolate junk on the other side that was horrible for me that you could go eat. But it was enjoyable. So that's some of the desserts. I did like the breads. You figured that out. So just miscellaneous, everything that you wanted for a supper, whatever you wanted was there. And it didn't matter what your limits were. Somebody told me they were running around $50 a plate, they thought. So I was trying to figure out how they could do that with what we paid to go. We got it good, it was good. So anyways, this is where we're going to start our trip today. This is the Mount of Beatitudes. So I took a few pictures just at the top. Obviously everything over there, the Catholic Church has bought so much and they own so much of it, but they've put these like motel type, and this is for, you pay dearly to go up on the top of this and stay. And you'll see why in a second too, but it is just absolutely gorgeous the way they've kept this place up. And this is going to be some of the same thing that happened before. I'm going to show off my skill at taking out of focus pictures. That one is in focus, and that one's in focus, and that one's not in focus. But they were pretty flowers. Just pretend that they're pretty. So that's them. But the whole area up there was just gorgeous. It was very much a fertile field. And as you're up on the top, as you're looking down, this is on the north side of the Sea of Galilee, and all of this stuff here is covering an orchard. And one of the things that I had a lot of trouble with as I was taking these pictures is how do you say the word, getting the dimensions, the scale, or I don't know the word for that right now. Perspective. Thank you. Getting a perspective so you can see this. We're up on a hill, but it doesn't show it too clear. There's one picture that I left in here that's a moving one. And again, this is up top. Here we go. There it is. You see the truck down there. It's right in that area. That'll just give you an idea of the height that we're at. This area is a natural amphitheater, and the hill comes around this way and over here, so that anything that you say, you can hear it everywhere. And it's really neat to be able to, we didn't get to do this, I wanted to. I wanted to go to the bottom and say hello and have it recorded up at the top, and to be able to see how the sound carried. But everything I heard while we were there is that this is just a natural, all you gotta do is talk down here. So as Jesus would have been speaking, he would have been able to have been heard extremely well. So I just gave away the first thing I was going to talk about. What happened at this place? Sermon on the Mount. So summarize this for me. Summarize what would be the gist of what Jesus was doing with the Sermon on the Mount. There's multiple, okay, teaching. What was he teaching about?
Law.
The law. Okay, so as he is looking at the law, what about it is, what was he saying that was For us, what is it that they needed to hear about the law? Okay, we're going to get to that one too. They need to obey it. Okay, it is impossible. Absolutely. How did he push there? There's something he was doing as he went through. I'll give you one key. Take murder. What did he teach about murder?
And hatred towards your brother without a cause, you're guilty.
Right. So it doesn't mean that it's not just so the heart of it, and again, there it is, the heart of it is not, okay, don't put that person to death. As long as you don't put him to death, you're okay. That's not what he was teaching. He was saying, even if you go to the hatred part, he went with adultery. And he said, even if you look, even if you have that lust, you're guilty. And he's showing it's impossible. We're going to fall. And he kept pushing that. What Jesus is pushing in that Sermon on the Mount is that you need to obey, not so much just the letter, but you need to obey the whole heart of the matter. And if you remember when we looked in the past at the Ten Commandments, it's just showing God's character. It shows what he's like. And even when we fail inside, we just failed. And that's an important thing to remember. Let's look at part of this. Somebody look up for me. I don't have little slips. Volunteer, Matthew 7, 24 to 27. Anybody?
Sure.
Got it. Matthew 7, 24 to 27.
Therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who has built his house on a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. But everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall.
Okay. Give me some background. Who is Jesus talking to there? What was the context? That matters. When Jesus was talking at this place, when he was standing there and speaking to the people, who was he talking to? What was the group of people? There might have been some around there. I'm probably assuming there were. It's more general. Huh? Well, Jesus came to minister to who? Lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's who he sent the disciples out to. Lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as us Gentile dogs came in line, he ministered to us too, but his primary focus was on Israel. He came offering himself as Messiah. Jew first, yes, to the Jew first. Meaning Jewish priority. That's what he came doing. Do you think of this? Is hard for me to think this way sometimes, but think about what he did. Jesus came as Messiah. He came as there to deliver them. Do you realize that they had an option that they could have received him as their Messiah? Now he had prophesied, not going to happen. They had the option. They were accountable for what they did with their Messiah. They could have received him. They could have ushered in the kingdom. That's why the disciples kept saying, is now the time? You're going to usher in the kingdom now? You're going to do it now? And he was saying, no, we're not doing it. We're not ushering in this kingdom. They weren't receiving him. So he came, and his primary focus when he was talking right in this area was to these Jews. Now think of what he's been saying to them. He's saying, here's your law. Here's what your law has said, and I'm going to, I'll use the word clarify. I'm going to teach. I'm going to instruct you on what this really means. I'm going to give you the true meaning of what it is. I'm expounding it to you. And then he gets to this verse that Mike just read. Okay, I've given it to you. I've given you the word of God. Now, whoever does, there's your obedience. Whoever does what I say, he's going to be like somebody who builds his house on a rock. if you don't do what I say, Jews, you're like somebody who's built their house on the sand. I think I've told this story. If I've said it and everybody knows it, kind of raise your hand and wave at me. I'll be quiet. When we were in Oregon, they built these multi-million-dollar homes on the seacoast, and they, after a few years, started sliding because they found out that underneath there was sand down under the dirt. And so they thought it was firm, and it wasn't firm. And these things slowly just went down in the ocean. That's exactly what happens to our lives. Doesn't matter how $1,000,000 home we look on the outside, when we're not following the word of God, when we are not obeying what God says, taking him at his word, we're just sliding down towards destruction. And that's not where we want to be. So this passage, he's very clear when he's telling them that with the Jews, you need to obey what you know. And I would suggest to you, in our country, that passage does not have America in mind. But you know, everybody wants to put America in it. It's not. But for us today, I would say in America, we've got a lot of people whose houses are built on sand and not on rocks. Because our culture is so filled with knowing a lot of stuff and not practicing what we know. That's our culture. And I'm talking churches. That's what we do. So this place is extremely well suited for what Jesus was wanting to show. And I'm not sure how many more of these I've got. There we go. This gives a little bit more of the depth. One of the things that happened, side issue, not important to anything, right around this wall, you can see the roof area. There was a group from some college, I forgot what, Bethany College maybe. They were there touring at the same time we were, and the group they had was a singing group. And they were doing some a cappella arrangements as they sat under this thing. And on the computer, I've got some of you can hear them in the background. Those guys were good. And it was really nice to hear. And they were doing, the songs they were doing would have been things that would have been in a, I'll call it more of a high church type music style it was absolutely phenomenal. They did a great job with it. But you got to sit around there and listen to them as they sang. And that was kind of part of their goal. Yes, I was there. That day, I had to be the flag bearer. Somebody has to walk around and say, "This is us," so they know where to go. That was the thing. This was the view from the top, looking across. We're on the north. Remember whenever you would hear Jesus say, "Going to the other side" in the New Testament, that's the other side. Other side is the Gentile side. This is the area somewhere in there, most likely, where the demon was cast out and or the demons and cast into the pigs and went down into the sea. So keep in mind, for me, one of the key things as I looked at this was, this is only about 7-8 miles away. Everything's close. And everyone would have known what happened. So that was just a good thing. This is so close to this Mount of Beatitudes, where all of this good teaching was given. Some pretty things they just had with the fish down on the bottom. Okay. That is Galilee, and Galilee's pretty much done. I may come back to Masada and come back from Jerusalem, but now we're going to be entering Jerusalem. This is on the way in. That's some of the, I'll call it the newer city part. But as we're going in, and one of the, I can't explain this. There's like a tunnel area that you go through as you're coming up. You always hear go up to Jerusalem. Everything is up. When we came to get here, we came from the Dead Sea and Gedi, Masada, that area real low, it's about 100+ degrees. Within an hour, we got here and we had climbed, and it was in the mid-80s, and everything, it was cooler. That doesn't sound too cool, but it was a lot cooler and nice. But as you're coming up through this mountain, they're telling you where you're coming up to Jerusalem. And as you come out, they've got I don't know the song, Jerusalem.
Holy City.
The
Holy City.
Okay. They had that playing on the bus. They're reading the Psalms of Ascent as we're coming in, which is exactly what the Jews were doing as they would ascend up to Jerusalem for their feast days. And so that whole experience, I can't explain it, but it was like almost, it made you shudder. So I'm going up, knowing this is what, back then, they would have somewhat, except for the bus, been experiencing. So they took us up initially. Okay, we're gonna stop that. Let's see if I can do this now. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. That's it. Okay, this is the guide explaining part of what we're seeing. So I wanted to have this played for you. I think it's like a minute, yeah, a minute plus. So let me just have him do it. Just listen close because he is hard to understand.
Only because it's some as a sacrifice. This is the place where King Solomon needed the temple. This is the place where it was destroyed. This is the place where later on the mistake was like the temple during the second period 550. We look at it, this is the place where Herod the Great planned this temple by building that floor and the temple. And this is the place
right here.
So, Jesus Christ,
This mountain over here, this is your Mount of Olives. So this is where Jesus would be sitting, weeping, and looking that way over towards Jerusalem. So this is the place, and Scopus kind of overlooks both. So nothing significant about Scopus, just a good place to be able to see it all at one shot. They also had a lot of vendors set up there, and they'd love to sell things to rich Americans. So
something that was called it's not one track. Some biblical point of view is 7 which is David when we go to the pool of Solomon. So we'll be just right there. This is what happened during also. This one I will read for you from if the Bible is but I try to read for you from Genesis.
oh, there. Yeah. So what he was showing, that mountain that the temple is on, what mount is that? He said what it was not. A lot of people say that is Mount.
Right. It's not Mount Zion.
They say it's Zion. He said it's not Mount Zion, it's Mount Moriah. Now, what else happened there?
Where Abraham offered his son.
Think about what's happened. Think about that picture. That is where Abraham took Isaac. Rephrase that. That's probably where Isaac took Abraham, helped his old father up this hill so his father could sacrifice him. So that's where one sacrifice attempted to be made, and God provided a substitute. And now we have the same thing happening in the same place. We have a substitute being given for us, and that's a beautiful picture. So I really appreciate this. Now let me ask this: where we covered this? Where did Jesus spend most of his ministry while he was here on earth? Galilee. He spent it at Galilee. So why would Jerusalem be so important? How much time, I'm leading you somewhere, how much time do you think Jesus spent in Jerusalem? Did he go there much? Okay, at feast time. Why? Why would he go down there at feast time? Huh?
To be observant.
To be observant. What else? Is it optional?
Keeping the law.
He's keeping the law. Had Jesus not followed the law, he could not be our sacrifice. So how many required feasts each year are there? 3 required feasts. So rough numbers, about how many times do you think Jesus was at this place?
9.
How many?
About 9 times.
During his ministry, yes. During his life, how many times? So almost 100 times, at least, no, roughly 100 times, he would have been at this place. Now, as we went up, what do you see right there? The mosque, the Dome of the Rock. That is and you're going to see pictures of that like crazy on here, because that's what's there. Okay, just bear with me with that. That's what you see. Can you imagine as Jesus would have been coming in on the road that we came in, as he was riding the bus, he would have seen the temple. He would have seen the temple sitting, not Dome of the Rock. He would have seen the temple, Herod's temple. That would have been a sight. And it'd been a whole lot more impressive. And you're gonna see how impressive this is. The temple would have been a whole lot more impressive. So he's been there a lot. Now, just a little bit of history. Let me see how far I want to go on this. I'm going to skip this one because it doesn't give a lot. Yes, I'm there again. Okay. This one. I'm going to share with you. This is one that I did. Finally at Jerusalem. So we got Dome of the Rock over here, Mount of Olives. It's just the city as a whole. Wait, one more thing, if I can get to stop. All right, finally at Jerusalem. So we got stop. Okay. Yo, please.
Well, what's there, but it's been built up a lot more over the years.
Not really. Well, I mean, obviously, Dome of the Rock's here. This is on the northern end. So this is your north. So this is going to be your east. What do you not see on this wall? No, that's Western. And the Jews don't like it being called Wailing Wall. They call it Western Wall. Here, there's not going to be, the gate's gone. The gate's going to be closed, and we're going to see why in a second. But here, this is your northern. This is the other mosque. There's multiple mosques here. And this whole platform, this temple platform that's up here, the Jews, that's not their thing right now. They're not as concerned about the platform because the Muslims have it. For them, it's not as holy. It's still a holy place, but it's not as holy as the wall over here. That's your Western Wall. That's the closest that you can get to the Holy of Holies, is the Western Wall. And that's where that's why the Jews stay over there and they congregate there. If a Jew walks across this mount, this Temple Mount, they will have guards. You'll see one in just a minute. They'll have guards. We had guards kind of walking around us. All of a sudden you look up and they're gone. And they had scooted over to where a couple of rabbis were walking, and they were surrounded, these rabbis, walking them across so nobody would want to kill them. Because that is Muslim holy ground, and you don't mess with it. It's just and it wasn't like you're in a dangerous position, but that's just what they do. Now for me, and we're getting to all of this later, but this wall down here, this is your southern wall. That's where that I can't say it, Al-Alaska, I think that's right, mosque is at. And I'll cover that in a minute too, but that's where your poor people went in. There's a major caste system with the Jews, and they had the rich and the poor. The rich would be coming in through the western wall, the poor through the southern wall. Now, I personally, and when we get into these walls and we go around them, the southern was my favorite, and even more than the western. But just knowing that is where Jesus would go in, that is where Jesus would preach, that is where Peter preached Pentecost. That wall, that southern steps coming up to that wall, where for me, it was very impressive. Other thing I want you to notice here, and I'm taking a lot of time on this, but here is where you get to that, I messed it up before, Kidron Valley, the valley in between Brook Kidron, not the valley. The brook down here. This is where Jesus would have walked and come through there from the Mount of Olives to go back up to the temple. That is where he would have walked to go up where he was tried. All of this area is where our Lord would have been traversing. And so we'll see more of that as we go. So let's finish this one real quick. Here, Mount of Olives. It's just the city as a whole. There want more. Okay, so this just gives you an idea as you're going around how this place is built. So here are some of your walls that are around, and you can just see where they're built right into the stone. And it's amazing how they built it. I'd love to see the architecture side of it, but you can see why this would be called say the word for me, impregnable. They couldn't get in. You're not messing with this thing. It was very formidable. What is this? Now, I was telling you, you see all the tour buses going up there? That's Scopus. This is where we were looking over. Now we're looking back up at it from the temple grounds. What is all that stuff? Yes. They don't like digging. They don't like to bury. And they put I got to see if I can say this word. I always mess this word up. Somebody help me out. Sarcophagus, yeah. Basically, the stone caskets, they'll put a body in them. They let the body decay for a long time. They take the bones out, put them in a bone box, put them to the side, put another body in it. And you pay, this is free, you pay millions of dollars. If you want to get buried in this area, it's millions. They charge dearly for a burial site around the temple. So for what that's worth, it's a very desirable place. So just as a little bit of history, what year did Jerusalem get set back up with Jews? When were they given their land back? Magic number was 19 what? 48. 1948, they came to Jerusalem, and at that point it was divided. There was East Jerusalem was Israeli, West Jerusalem was Jordanian. About 20 years later, 1967, what was the name of the war? 6-Day War. Israel won. Israel took over. Think about this. Israel's only been around 75 years. Some of you have been, no, yeah, longer than Israel. I mean, think about this. This is a young country. They're really new. And right now, thank you for letting me know that, Gene. You've got about 1 million people living here, not in the cemetery. You got about 1 million people living there in Jerusalem. There's about a 60-40 split, Jew to Arab. They estimate 6,000 Christians. Now, when they say Christians, they're going to be talking Catholicism, Greek Orthodox, all of your different realms of Christianity. You've got 6,000 Christians. So I would say genuine Christians, you've got very, very few in this place. And our guide that you heard talking was a believer, and he's in a church. He didn't tell us much about it, but if I remember right, 30 people, and there aren't many of those in Jerusalem with 1 million people. He's in it's a very desolate area. So what we have that we saw there, the Dome of the Rock, we got the Alaska Mosque, you've got the retaining walls, all these sarcophagi, whatever you want to call them. And one of the things they do, and I didn't realize this, so he was explaining this. I don't think I can see it by zooming. No, you can't get close enough. One of the things they do, you know how in our culture, if you want to go and visit a burial site, you take what? You take flowers. They don't take flowers. They'll go to these rocks and sometimes they may write a note, but they put a rock on top of the casket, on top of the stone. And so that rock will stay there. Sometimes they just put rocks on there. That's just their way. And you remember when Jesus, he was talking, he told the people that, remember the Pharisees said, stop these people from praising you, stop them. And Jesus said, if they close their mouths, I'm paraphrasing big time, if they close their mouths, what's going to speak up? The stones are going to speak up. When Jesus rose from the dead, was he the only one that rose from the dead? There was a bunch of people rose from the dead, weren't there? And I can't say, I don't know, but here's one of the things was when these people and all that they've been buried in all these caskets, when there was a raising from the dead, those stones could have moved, and the stones that have been on top, they would have cried out. They would have been the ones getting thrown everywhere. It was known very clearly that Jesus rose from the dead. There was an announcement, if you will, being made. And it was a good picture to see how these rocks would cry out. So we've looked at this courtyard, not so holy to the Jews, it is to Muslims. Now, one of the things I wasn't sure about, let's see if I can get over to one of them. Okay, this is down by the temple proper, or by the courtyard here that has been reconstructed or whatever, if you will. There's the Scopus where we were with the graveyards. This one is not the Dome of the Rock. This is at Al-Alaska Mosque. The reason there's multiples here, there's more than these two, but what they teach, this is just, it's their tradition, wrong, but I want you to understand something and listen close to what they're saying. They believe that Muhammad, he took a ride on his magic horse. Here's the name, Pegasus. Do you recognize that name? Where does that come from? Greek mythology. Again, here's the spoiler alert. They stole from a lot of different religions to get their teachings. And you're going to see some of the same things. But they believe that he went to ride that horse. He went up to the seventh heaven. He got to talk to God. And God said, I want all of your people to pray 50 times a day. And the teaching is that Muhammad started bartering with God. And he said, no, that's too many. How about if we bring it down to this? How about, listen close, would you be happy with 40? Would you be happy with 30? Do you recognize something that sounds similar to this? What's the picture? Abraham. They're stealing, they stole from other religions. Okay, and guess what? He got down to 5, which is why they pray 5 times a day. And so they believe that, and then when he finished this bartering match with God, he came back, and one of my friends said he thinks his GPS was off, because instead of landing there with his Pegasus horse, he landed it where the Dome of the Rock is across the way. So that's why they have to. And all of this, I mean, what I want you to see is how they borrowed from other religions to get theirs going. It's not true. There's nothing there. So all of that to say that's where they have their traditions from. Now, Dome of the Rock. Obviously, we're not Muslim. I get it. Okay, this one is a model where he's going to be talking to. This is Holy of Holies. This would be the outer courts. This is a model that they have. Obviously, we don't have the real thing. One of the things.
Exactly the same line facing the eastern. That's the relation today.
Holy of Holies is facing the eastern wall. It's very close to the western wall. When you look at the Dome of the Rock, here's what it's going to be hard to hear him. The Dome of the Rock is on the north wall. Al-Alaska Mosque is on the south wall. And that's why Jews aren't too concerned about those places. That is not where the Holy of Holies was. That's not where you're going to find what they're wanting. It's the east-west line. That's what he's describing. And that's where you'll see. So that's why the Jews are not as concerned with the mosque area. That is not where the Holy of Holies was. And so they are more concerned between the east gate and the west gate, you would go right through the Holy of Holies. So that's what he was describing there. This, we're not going to go here today, but this is the Western Wall. A lot of that is original that would have been there at the time. And if you could see, we're going to see some video clips. It's heartbreaking because you've got, they want to put their entire bodies, and the scripture's talking about, pray with your entire being. That's why you see them, they're moving constantly. That's how they pray. It's not a matter of, us communing. You've got to go through the ritual, and that's what they're doing. And it was a very sad place in my mind to watch the repetition and I admire the dedication, but that's it. That is it. But we'll get to this one a little bit later on. This is coming on the outside. Yes, there's your Israeli defense people. One of those is coming up. But this is on the grounds proper, and what they have is from when it was destroyed, these different capitals that would have been on the tops. So it shows you the different time periods, and it just spans boatloads of time. This is more of a
and Alexa Mosque. Their holy sites on top of the Temple Mount for the Muslims.
Did you notice, so we can get back to it and stop. Just a small thing, but nope, I missed it again.
The Temple Mount for the Muslims.
There. Look at the intricate artwork on that thing. This is stone carved out, and it looks like a basket. These guys were good. Anyway, that was a small thing. But that's the Alaska Mosque. It's not the famous one. So just multiple pictures, Dome of the Rock, entrance is in. One of the things that our guide was telling us about with this, if this place was rebuilt today, if you were to go and try to rebuild this place, you'd be looking, according to him, at about $4 billion to build this place. This thing has, and we'll get closer pictures, all of these mosaic things are they're little pieces of mosaic. It's estimated 48 million mosaics to make up this building. Just the artwork on it is really amazing. I don't remember the significance. I apologize, but outside of the dome, that's it down here. There's 52 windows, one for each week around this building. And that's just the mosaic, thank you, of the whole temple grounds. That's up close, some of the artwork that's in there with the stone. That gives you an idea more so of just the detail of the individual pieces that make this thing up and why it would be so expensive. So it's just not, this is the site. If you look, I'm going to be talking about this in just a second. If you look right through here, that's where your eastern gate would be. This is the spot where the Jews believe this is where the Holy of Holies would have been. It is going western gate straight through the eastern gate. Okay, I wasn't supposed to do
So this is the Dome of the Rock. Some said Holy of Holies under that, and the guide was just mentioning how it's gonna be on the east-west of the Eastern Gate, which is right through there where that dome is. Will be the Eastern Gate, I believe that's, if you go east-west, it's right at this spot, instead of in front of me. So that gate is blocked, so we've got to get down there.
So I don't know if you just heard what I said, that gate is blocked. So why would the eastern gate be blocked? That's the big question. So what are the Jews trying to, or the Jews, what are the Muslims trying to prevent? Oh, I'll get back to that one, don't let me forget. This guy is from Queens, New York. He left Queens, went over, joined the IDF, and as I was walking through, I said something as I was walking by this guy, like, thank you for your service. And he mumbled at me, and he said, and I thought I understood him, I did. He said, only if you're for Trump. And I turned, I said, what did you say? He said, I didn't say anything. I said, yes, you did. What did you say? He said, only if you're for Trump. Everybody heard him, started cheering for this guy. And we just loved him. He was great. So it's amazing how much they love our last president over there. They really loved him. And this guy was, yes, everybody wanted to get a picture with him. So it was good. So anyways, what did I just ask? Eastern Gate. Eastern Gate. So why would the Eastern Gate, this is all still up on top, and we'll get to this one. This, I love this place. They built a to scale model of Jerusalem.
That's where Paul was at too, right?
Right there. Yes, and this is the picture I used for Paul, because he was in this northwest corner, because here's your western. That's where the Holy of Holies is. And that's what this is why I wanted you to see this. Coming east, you hit the Eastern Gate. And so this is your east to west. That's why they're not worried about the mosque being up here. They're not worried about the other mosque down here. This east to west, that's where the Holy of Holies is. And the western wall, which is why they pray there, which is why they want to be there, is the closest place to the Holy of Holies that you can get. So they want that western wall. That's their spot. And Muslims don't go down there. That is not where they're welcome, just as the Jews aren't welcomed up here. So that conflict is still going on. So what they did, and I think we've got a picture, I think we'll have a picture coming up. They closed off the Eastern Gate. They don't want Messiah coming through the gate. Then, to make it worse, they put a Muslim cemetery in front of the Eastern Gate. No self-respecting Jew would ever come across a cemetery, so they put a cemetery there to stop Messiah from being able to come and go through this gate to set up his rule. See, the problem is they don't get that he already came. They don't get that, when he comes back, he's not going to need to walk across anything. He's coming back to reign. And they don't have any hope, but they're trying everything they can. They set up within the Eastern Gate where they shut it down, they set up a mosque. They want the Jews not welcome. They want the Jewish Messiah not welcome. And that's this day. It's a pathetic picture, but it's really what's going on. Okay, let's finish sliding through these things real quick. This model, when I have looked at different pictures online and seen different commentaries, they use this to scale model because it is so good. And you'll see, you can see the people on the other side to see the scale and what it is. Just a back view of it. And this is what we looked at earlier that Mike was talking about with Paul being, when they tried to kill him, the soldiers would have come out of the Antonio fortress, went down in, grabbed him and brought him back up the stairs to come in here, under this thing. So you'd have been on stairs in that area, but under this one. Does that make any sense? So he would have come up in here to get into the fortress. And this size-wise, remember there was a chief captain who would have been over 1,000. So you got a lot of soldiers in this thing. This is big. So that gives you an idea if that's holding 1,000. And this just gives you, again, reference to what it was like back in Jesus' day. This is from so this would be your north side. I always get my directions mixed up. When we get to so this is your west wall. When we get to the west wall and we're seeing it, you're going to see this place right here, this archway, this piece right there. If I'm remembering it right, that's the piece that's still there. You can still see part of that arch that had been destroyed. So that piece is still around. You can still see where it would have been at. So that's going to be, for me, it's exciting to see that. But just that miniature.
It's just the model they set up. The temple back in Jesus' day. These rocks right in here. That could be where Golgotha was, where he was crucified, as well as it could be over in this section right in there. I'm not quite sure.
And we'll see both of those as we go through Jerusalem, where they think he may have been crucified. There, it's not a given, but for sure thing. This isn't letting me move. That may be the last one. Okay. All right, that is it. So what are some take-home lessons that we can learn from we've seen the Beatitudes, we've seen where Jesus has come into Jerusalem, we've seen the multiple things about Muslims. What are things that we can take home with us today? Give me one. Definitely. God was working through all of this. Definitely working. And I'm thankful for that. Even with their sin, he worked for our good. Going back to Beatitudes, it's all well and good that we learn facts. If we know truth, we are accountable for what we do with that truth. We are to obey the truth that we know. I would much rather, you've heard this before, I'd much rather people know very little and obey what they know than know a ton and not do what they know. To whom much is given, what? Much is required. You and I are given a lot. We have been totally blessed. And therefore, we're accountable for what we do with what we know. One of the things that the Jews are very excited about, the Catholics are very excited about. I enjoy going here. My hope is not there. My hope is not that I could go see something. My hope was not, even though I wanted to touch some of the things that were there, that's not my hope. I don't have, it's not about a location. We have access to the Lord wherever we are. We can worship him in spirit and in truth. I don't have to be going and putting my prayer request into little slots and places on a wall. I don't have to be doing the motions to be able to pray. We've been given a lot of freedom. We've been given access directly to God. We should take advantage of this. Going and seeing this is awesome. That's not what my hope is. Not that I can go to a place. My hope's not tied up in it. Doesn't need to be. Anyone else? Okay, but we're going to go ahead and shut this section down. We'll close in a word of prayer.